How's it going, YouTube? I hope wherever and whenever you're at, you are having a wonderful day. Thought I'd hop on here and give you all a bit of a yakety schmack about one of the annoying things about trucking, and especially being an owner-operator. Obviously, if you're an owner-operator or a semi-truck driver and you're driving a modern truck, whether it's a fleet spec truck or one you had custom built, or whatever the case may be, you have a DPF system on it. That's almost an epithet these days. Probably has been since they were introduced. Unfortunately, for me, I didn't get into trucking until long after the DPF systems became regulatory requirements. But I have had to deal a few times with DPF systems being a problem. Fortunately, not too severely. In fact, the only time I've ever really had a major problem with a DPF system is when I was driving for Werner. I'm rocking my old school Werner owner-operator shirt here just for fun. But I haven't driven for them in it's been about 6 months now, 8 months since I left them. Anyway, when I was with Werner, let's see, I was driving a 2019 Freightliner Cascadia. I think it was part of the first block of the new Cascadias, the 126 models that Werner had gotten. I'm not quite sure exactly when in the string or when in the block it was actually acquired, but it was one of the earlier options. Oh, yes, shut up. And, so anyway, I was headed south on a 3M run. This has got to be, I think this is November 2020. Yes. I'm in Southern Illinois around Mount Vernon area, and I get a check engine light come on. I'm like, all right, well, whatever, see what this is about. Run through the self-diagnostic system on the dash real quick, and it throws me the code, and I eventually figured out it was a code related to the DPF system. I figured, okay, well, probably just needs to regenerate and it'll be fine. Then it threw me an engine derate warning, and so I got shut down and off the road. Eventually got to a Freightliner dealership. Turned out that one of the sensors, nitrogen oxide sensors, or nitrogen oxygen sensors had gone bad, and because of that, the DPF system was like, nope, you don't get to drive anymore until you get this thing fixed. So I'm like, well, that sucks. Anyway, fortunately, since it was a company truck, it was a company problem, and it got sorted out. I believe it was under warranty. But anyway you slice it, it was Werner's problem to take care of because it was Werner's truck. Now with this truck, my T680, I have yet to have any issues with the DPF system, and I have put almost 100,000 miles on this truck since I bought it. I'm sitting at about 98,500 miles on it since I actually acquired it and took possession of it officially this past December. So DPF issues are things that I am keeping an eye out for, especially given the age of the truck in terms of its mileage. It's a 2017 model year truck with 467,000, almost 468,000 miles on it, which is not bad. And aside from a couple of issues here and there, I really don't have a lot to complain about with this truck mechanically. It's done very well for me. Yeah, it's thrown me a few issues here and there. I've had to do a couple of tires, unfortunately. I've had to do a few shocks. At different times, I've done all 6 shocks at least once so far. The drive shocks when I first bought it, and they told me, yeah, you got 1 shock blown and 3 of them. They're not looking so hot, like you replaced all 4 of them. I should have done the steer axle shocks too, but I figured, well, they're all right, let them ride a little while, and then later on, when I changed companies, they brought it in for their inspection. It's like, yeah, you've got blown shock on your steer axle. I'm like, well, let's go ahead and get them both swapped out. So, and then I blew a shock coming off I-57 onto I-80 West near Joliet, Illinois. If you know that interchange, you know what I'm talking about. If you've been up there the last 6 months or so, there was a pothole so big I'd forgotten it was there, and I hit it, and it was more like driving into a blast greater than a pothole. And I blew the right rear drive axle shock, and that was fun to deal with. Well, it wasn't a problem because I was coming in for home time, so it was just a matter of checking the truck into the shop and letting them just, you know, getting it done while I was at home. So it worked out okay. It was just annoying. But, you know, that's just the cost of doing business. Stuff breaks, you got to keep an eye out for it. Your pre-trip inspections should be letting you know what is or is not working properly. If you saw my video from a couple of weeks back or so, I discovered one of my marker lights had gone out, so I had to go up to a Kenworth shop and get a couple, one to replace and one to have as a spare. So I've got one floating up around here somewhere as a spare unit in case another one of those marker lights goes out. Replace that. But I was talking about DPF systems. Now, one thing I've been trying to avoid doing when I'm on the road is running my engine while idling, and I'm not in a situation where I'm being loaded or unloaded. I'm only going to be sitting there a little while, so I can kind of afford to let the truck idle. Like, overnight idling is not something I ever do if I can avoid it with this truck. I have an APU for that reason. I went out and specifically went looking for a truck that had an APU already on board in order to avoid overnight idling, because overnight idling, for those of you who do not know, you're burning diesel fuel, obviously, but you're also, the DEF doser is still operating as well. It's still feeding DEF, which is diesel exhaust fluid. Again, for those of you who don't know, those handful of you who might not know, into the exhaust system. But because the exhaust is not at, you know, road temperature, it's not running hot exhaust, the DPF filter media inside a giant cylinder on the right side of the truck, right in front of the right side fuel tank, that can get gummed up with material, you know, exhaust detritus a lot faster. And every now and again, the engine's going to want to regenerate in order to get the exhaust up to road temperature so we can burn that stuff out and keep the filter, you know, clean, so to speak. And then every 200,000 miles, no matter what, you need to bring the truck into a shop where they actually take that system, that filter case off, open it up, take the filter media out, blast it out, and then bake it at like 1500 plus degrees in order to get the remaining exhaust detritus out of that filter media, and then reinstall it, put the filter casing back on the truck, and then you're good to go for another 200,000 miles. Now I'm thinking about having that done around 500,000 miles, just as a matter of course, because when I bought this truck, I bought it from a PACCAR dealership, or a dealership that specified, that works specifically only in PACCAR products, meaning only Kenworth, only Peterbilt trucks. When I was asking them about the things they had done to the truck after they had received it from this previous owner, and as they were getting it ready for the lot, and after I agreed to buy it, the salesman told me that they had contracted out to have the DPF system cleaned. Now, initially, I was told that would be done in-house, but I don't remember the exact wording the salesman actually spoke to me, so I can't really hold them against the wall with a gun to their heads and say, yeah, you know, you didn't do this right, because I don't remember exactly how he phrased it to me. I just know that as soon as he told me they contracted it out, I immediately did not believe that the job had been done thoroughly, properly, or to ensure that the truck would actually make it to the 200,000 mile mark under my ownership and operation without needing a DPF service of some sort. So I've kind of had 500,000 miles circled on my itinerary for some major mechanical checkups. Probably going to have my belts done or replaced around that marked as well. So I had the belts done early this year, I think in January, February time frame, but that was, 75,000 miles ago. So I just probably should be looking to get those done again, or do them every 100,000 miles, just for peace of mind and safety, in case one of them decides to break when I'm on the road like I am now, fortunately with no broken belts. And, just preventative maintenance to keep things rolling without issue. And then, of course, have some other things checked, just to make sure that issues that might be preventable can be prevented, or at least if they are beginning to develop, can then address them before they become a major problem and thus a more expensive problem to deal with. So, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, as the old saying goes. Delicious. Anyway, DPF systems and DEF. The price of DEF, I've been surprised about that. The price of DEF, when I started driving 18-wheelers back in 2019, the price of DEF was about $2.99 a gallon, maybe a little bit less. Maybe it was $2.79 in some places, but it was not what it is now. So in the course of 2 years and 3 months, the price of DEF has increased an average of, I want to say, about 40 cents a gallon nationwide from what I've seen. Because I would see it in certain areas, I think as low as $2.78, $2.79, maybe usually the price is $2.99. Now the average cost for a gallon of DEF that I'm seeing at most truck stops, now again, it's the major truck stops, not the mom and pop shops or the smaller chains like Quick Star or Quick Trip up in Minnesota and South Dakota areas, and part of Wisconsin too. At Love's, Pilot, Flying J, TA, Petro, the average price for a gallon of DEF is about $3.35 to $3.45 a gallon. So we're looking at a 40 to 50 cent per gallon increase in the cost of DEF, again, per gallon, in just a span of not even 2.5 years. Now, I am not fully up on the science of diesel exhaust fluid. I'm not up on the composition of it scientifically. In my opinion, it should not cost anywhere near the amount of money per gallon that it costs, considering what it does. But again, I don't know the science behind it. I just know that the cost of DEF sucks, and I don't like it. Now, granted, my T680 only has an 11-gallon DEF tank on it, and I usually top it off just about every fill-up. Every now and again, I will run the DEF tank down to under half, or down to about only a quarter left, just to clean out older DEF, run that through the exhaust system to get that burned off, and then put fresh DEF in there, especially as we get closer and closer to winter time. Definitely want to make sure that the DEF tank will not be a problem. So, or if I've been, running in some areas with questionable resources, maybe the DEF there in certain areas isn't so good, get that burned out so you can put clean material in there and keep that system running as good as possible. Again, to avoid issues, but it's just, those things are what they are. Now, I did run this truck through Kenworth's shop just about a month ago or so, maybe a little over a month ago, and I had them check the DEF doser and a bunch of other stuff, along with the 7th injector, they call it, just to make sure that everything with the DPF system in terms of the DEF delivery to the exhaust was functioning properly. And they said, yeah, everything looks good. Or they also said that there were some things we just didn't want to mess with because they didn't look like they were a problem. And if you're not hearing anything or seeing any warnings that are indicating you do have a problem, it's like, we don't want to screw with it so you don't end up having a problem because, of an issue with the fasteners or the parts or whatever. I'm like, well, okay. So I guess we'll run it that way. But, So, yeah. DPF and DEF. was talking to a driver, this has got to be at least 6 months ago now, maybe closer to 8 months ago. We were both in a truck stop waiting on lunch in a fast food joint, and we were just talking. He'd been doing a lot of driving out west in California, and he would talk about how DPF trucks, in his opinion, all they were doing is just dropping dirty water on the ground, and then the chemistry of the DEF mixing with the exhaust was killing grasses. And then for the trucks that have the north-south exhaust between the frame rails and right in front of the drive axle, versus the guys who have the exterior tall stacks that spew the exhaust up and out into the air more directly as opposed to down and at the ground, like my truck does. And he was talking about how he would see a lot of dead grass right by the interstate, which he blamed that on DEF exhaust, or the hot exhaust mixing with the DEF causing that issue. And then also he said he would see dead leaves at about, and dead branches and trees at about the same height as the exhaust stacks would be on semi trucks. And he just went on and on about how he didn't like the DPF systems and that they were all kind of a California scam, and it's just, not as good for the environment as everyone thought they were. I tend to agree with him, because at least it's to the point of where I don't believe that the DPF system and the DEF itself is actually cleaning up the exhaust of trucks to the extent that people wish it would. Now, obviously, the DPF system and the DEF fluid, the DPF and the DEF, obviously on newer build trucks and fleet spec trucks, they are keeping more soot out of the air because the DPF filter media does trap it, allegedly. And then combine that with the DEF, some kind of magic happens and the exhaust at least looks cleaner. Now, just how clean it actually is, I honestly couldn't tell you. I am not anyone who is aware of the science regarding what actually happens in the exhaust system when the DPF and the DEF are doing their thing. I just know that the DPF system and the DEF tank itself are going to be things I will be dealing with as a truck driver for a long time to come, until there is some transformative breakthrough in how diesel fuel is blended and produced, and also how diesel engines actually work. Because I do not for a moment believe that an all-electric semi really will be a successful over-the-road, on-highway vehicle like everyone who is buying hard into electric actually believes it will. I don't think it's going to be nearly as successful as people hope it will. In fact, I believe for the next 3 to 5 years, any attempt to put on-highway electric semis running, transcontinental routes will be an automatic failure. Whereas running all-electric semis, in cities, I believe that will be a massive success, just because there will be charging infrastructure close at hand, and it'll be much easier to maintain those trucks, keep them running, keep them working, because they won't have to worry about trying to get a charge in some over-the-road facility that will be purpose-built to accommodate them. So, no matter who you are, whether you like it or not, diesel semi-trucks are going to be around for a long time to come, just because for now, and for most of the foreseeable future, they are just guaranteed more reliable and more serviceable than all-electric semis. But whenever the next big technological breakthrough actually does come along, then we might see some things change regarding on-highway semis, and whether or not electric semis actually do begin to fully displace fleets, and whether or not self-driving electric semis begin to displace driver-operated diesel semi-trucks as well. A lot of things could happen. Whether or not they will happen, well, that is open for very contentious, very strong debate. But for the time being, things are what they are, and with with that being said,